Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another fabulous Friday Ramblings. I'm here, as always, to discuss little slices and bits of pop culture positivity because, you know what? We had enough people screaming into the void on the internet. Let's have some laughs. Now we're going to go to the past for this one, folks. We're going mega retro. We're not going to the 2000s. We're not going to the 90s. We're going all the way back to the 80s for this one. My childhood. My young childhood. But we're going to discuss something that is still around today in one form or another. Think of this as a little sneak preview of what's probably going to be future videos covering the many, many incarnations it has taken, but we're going to discuss when a little TV show got a theatrical movie that wasn't so much a spin-off as one giant setup for more of the TV series, but did it with an all-star celebrity cast. Transformers, more than meets the eye. Yep. Before Michael Bay, this was the Transformers movie. And I'm not necessarily throwing shade at Michael Bay and his Transformer movies. At least not this episode. We can fill up an entire video or two of that all on their own. Nope, we're going to focus exclusively on the 80s Transformers. Now, before we get into the movie, we have to go into a bit of backstory, because I cannot assume everybody listening is super familiar with the original Transformers cartoon. Transformers was a cartoon series that came out in... Go ahead and get my dates straight here, because I do hate misinforming. Originally aired on September 17th, 1984, and ended on November 11th, 1987. That's all well and good. Now, obviously, there were a lot of Transformers toys, and this is what the cartoon series, like most of the cartoon series we got in the 80s, was all about, which was serving as giant commercials for the toys. Now, the good news about it is because this was kind of a new thing that was really being worked on in the 80s, and they figured if they were going to do something this kind of weird and all that, that they would go full blown on it. So even though these old 80s cartoon shows like Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man are all, you know, oversized, unending commercials, they do serve an important important distinction of flat out aging a lot better than the toys, because they actually hired really good writers and voice actors for the shows. You know, they went all in on this stuff, and as such, these stand the test of time. Now, specifically because the Transformers TV show did really, really good in its first two seasons, they decided in 1986 to do something a little bit different before the launch of season 3, and that is create a theatrical movie that would serve as a bridging point and a transition point between the seasons, because specifically what was going on with the toy side is that they were on the verge of releasing a huge new wave release of toys, and they wanted the Transformers cartoon series to feature these new toys. The only problem is that's a lot of new characters to try to cram into a 30-minute TV series. And really, let's break down some math here, folks. If you subtract the commercials, the opening intro is redundant, excuse me, let me try that again. Opening theme song and the closing theme song / credits, you're really only getting more like 20, maybe 22 minutes of time to make these toys become fully fleshed out characters that kids want to have in their homes. So what do? You can't just suddenly stop writing all these characters that you've been writing for 2 seasons. And yes, over the course of the first 2 seasons, they did have some new toys highlighted and like special one-off eps, but the core cast had by and large remained the same throughout the first 2 seasons. But they were looking for a major overhaul to highlight this big wave of new toys coming. So, they decided they would use a theatrical movie to justify this, specifically by having a plot so big and so intense that they would actually kill off characters. That's right, the Transformers movie serves basically as a way for them to wipe the slate clean of a lot of the cast of the TV series, while at the same time creating a story that would get people super hyped for the new season, despite losing a lot of their fan favorite characters. So, with that background in mind, let's get to the juiciest of juicy details. Hard facts here, let's throw this at you. As we said, Transformers the movie came out in 1986 and is a traditionally animated film. It was released specifically in North America on August 8th, in the United Kingdom on December 12th. The film was co-produced and directed by Nelson Shin, who also produced the television series. Screenplay was written by Ron Friedman, and the movie features the all-star voice acting of Eric Idle, Judd Nelson, Leonard Nimoy, Casey Kasem, Robert Stack, Lionel Stander, John Machida Jr., Peter Cullen, Frank Welker, as well as, in their final roles, the legendary Orson Welles and musician and actor Scatman Crothers. Orson Welles actually died the year before its release after he had finished recording his voice work, and Scatman Crothers died months after its release. Now, the film story takes place in 2005, 20 years after the events of the TV series' second season. Now, this is key for one major reason, and that is that the TV series had previously featured the character of Spike Witwicky. However, he had been portrayed as a teenager, and, you can't have somebody be a teenager forever, especially if you're going to show the passage of time to illustrate the fact that the Transformers 2 factions, Autobots and Decepticons, were at war, and that their war was taking decades of Earth-based time. So what happens? Well, Spike grows up and gets married. Has a child, Daniel, who serves as the human best buddy of the good guy Autobots, in place of his father Spike, who now takes on a role as kind of a human liaison and senior adventurer to these spacefaring races that they now know of and regularly interact with. Now, the good news about all this is, as I said, it gave a lot of things a fresh coat of paint. Now, here's where things get a little fun. As I said, a lot of the point of this movie was to clear the decks to introduce new characters. As such, several iconic Transformers do die in the first act of the movie. And this proved to be very surprising, shocking, and somewhat tragic for the little children watching this movie, because it's the last thing we ever expected. You know, the TV series, yeah, you'd see them shoot at each other, somebody'd get injured, but they always recovered. Not this time. This time, we are playing for keeps. Among the people killed are Ironhide, Ratchet, Prowl, Brawn, and the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime. Now, of course, with the death of Optimus Prime, there is nobody to protect the holiest of holy artifacts for the Transformer race, the Autobot Matrix of Leadership. He originally passes this on to Ultra Magnus. However, Magnus, being a mid-ranking soldier, does not feel he has the confidence and the right to truly wield the Matrix of Leadership as a Prime. After all, Optimus was a pretty good leader, and it is a hard thing to follow, especially when it's not a planned thing where you can be trained up casually and at your own pace, but something thrust upon you in the death throes of your mentor. This would be one of the most crippling blows for the Autobots storyline-wise, because, you know, their vaunted leader from the earliest days of the war is now gone. And his apparent heir is not really even sure he deserves it. Now, Ultra Magnus does do his best, however, due to them having to abandon Earth, due to their Earth-based headquarters suffering so much damage, the Autobots are scattered to a few different planets. And we get to see various misadventures of smaller squads, including some of the Autobots running into a isolated subsection of Transformers living on a planet of junk. This would be the Junkions, led by Wreck-Gar, who is, in my personal opinion, one of the most interesting and fun new characters introduced in this movie. We also get introduced to several other Transformers who are shown to, over the 20 years, be part of the main crew. This would be Hot Rod, Cup, the aforementioned Ultra Magnus, RC, Springer, Blur, along with a couple handouts from the previous era, such as Perceptor, you know, to show that not everything was about getting rid of the old. They did keep a few of those characters around to serve in minor supporting roles. Now, on the Decepticon side of things, they had several casualties themselves, most famously being Megatron. Now, here's where the big threat of the movie comes in. Voiced by the legendary Orson Welles, we get an introduction to the most powerful and most evil Transformer of all time. The size of a moon, and seen early in the film destroying and devouring other planets for sustenance. The Great Unicron. Here's where things get really crazy. Unicron knows that he needs the Autobot Matrix of Leadership specifically to prevent anybody from utilizing the great power rumored to be held within it before he feels confident enough to make his assault on Cybertron and wipe out the Transformer race once and for all. Because while they are inhabiting various other planets and space bases, Cybertron is still their home turf where the majority population of the Transformer species exists. So, with a handful of Decepticons, including Megatron, having recently been slain in battle and jettisoned out in space in a pretty disrespectful funeral, led by the always scheming and greedy for more power Starscream, Unicron resurrects these Transformers and puts them into new bodies, Megatron becoming upgraded for more power and more insanity as Galvatron, and several of his lackeys being rebuilt as various unnamed pawns, but specifically his main backups would be Cyclonus and Scourge. Most of the pawns simply being referred to by the group of the Sweeps. So Galvatron goes forth, seeking the matrix of leadership, finds it with Ultra Magnus on the Junkion planet, wipes out Ultra Magnus, nearly killing him if it hadn't been for Retgar and his people's inherent ability to rebuild with whatever parts are lying around, saving Ultra Magnus's life. Galvatron also makes a stopover on Cybertron and slays Starscream, proving once and for all that there is only one true leader of the Decepticons. However, as I said, a few other factions of Autobots crash land on other planets before being alerted to the nature of Unicron and his great threat, before they all converge on Cybertron for the big battle at the end. Among these would be Cup, who is the veteran soldier that has seen it all and done it all 3 times over, and therefore always has plenty of stories, and Hot Rod, who is the rookie always eager to prove himself, who seems to be full of potential. They managed to run into a group known as the Quintessons, who would be major players in Season 3 and the shortened Season 4 of the Transformers television series. Quintessons being multi-faced elder robots who see themselves as judge, jury, and executioners of everything in the galaxy they come across. Cup, Hot Rod, and their friends, including the newly found teeny tiny human-sized Autobot Wheelie, escape the Quintessons planet and rendezvous with everybody else at Cybertron just in time for Unicron's landing. Hot Rod manages to enter Unicron and fight with Galvatron, who is trying to use the Matrix of Leadership to steal Unicron's power and glory. Because whether he's Galvatron or Megatron, at the end of the day, the one thing he won't tolerate is taking orders from anybody else. This leads to the climactic battle in which Hot Rod gains the Matrix of Leadership and proves he is the true heir, as he not only is capable of opening it and unleashing the power to destroy Unicron, but unlike Ultra Magnus when he held it, Hot Rod is also in turn upgraded into Rodimus Prime. Thus, the rookie steps into his own. So, we get a generally happy ending with Unicron destroyed, his head serving as a new moon of Cybertron. Galvatron excuse me, a little dry here. Galvatron escaping off into space with his most loyal lackeys, Cyclonus and Scourge, to plot another day. and the Autobots finding themselves with new leaders, new allies, and a future full of hope and potential. Now, as I said, this would all lead into Season 3 and a short Season 4 before the cartoon series was canceled. Where in America we would not get anything for several more years until the direct continuity sequel, Beast Wars, which I have discussed in detail in a separate video. Feel free to check it out in the archives. So, without getting into too many plot specifics, because I feel like I already gave a pretty good summary of the movie, is the movie worth seeing? Yes, the good news is you don't have to technically watch the first 2 seasons of the show or feel like you're being forced to watch Season 3 and 4 to find any closure. The movie does work as a standalone as long as you know the most bare basic concepts of the Transformers franchise, which is 2 factions of this race, Autobots and Decepticons, have been at war for centuries and specifically have spent the last couple decades on Earth having this war along with the help of some humans. Everything else the movie pretty much explains for you, which is one of the great benefits of the movie. While it was made to serve as a bridging point between the 2 seasons and the mass amount of changes that Hasbro wanted to put on the show, it does stand alone on its own quite well. Now, is it the kind of thing that's going to convert you into a hardcore Transformer fan? No, not really. It's a very good movie, especially for its time. Optimus Prime's death scene is done exceptionally well and holds up with any technically all ages movie handling the very serious and real topic of death. But at the end of the day, it is hampered by the fact that while it does its damnedest to be a standalone thing, it is wedged in between 2 seasons of a TV series. And ultimately, while you're not feeling obligated to watch what came next, you are left with that sense that there is a lot more story left untold for these new characters, especially with the crowning of new leader Rodimus Prime. However, for people that are somewhat interested in Transformers and want a relatively quick peek at what the original series brought to the table, because they either never watched it back in the day, were born after its time, you know, it is excellent for that, because it is written as well as anything from the cartoon series, and in fact, is written better than about 75% of the cartoon series. It is interesting to see all these major name actors recognize their voices being applied to new characters, or at least, new to most people. Unicron does make a highly effective villain, even if he only sticks around for the 1 movie, which again is kind of good because it does give you that little bit of sense of closure you want by the end of the movie. The threat of Unicron is gone, even if Galvatron remains. So, honestly, I would put it right in the middle. I would recommend the movie personally, because I do enjoy the classic Transformers series. And as I said, the movie is some of this series at its best, and has a lot of big name actors, not all of whom did a lot of voice acting, so it can get interesting on that level. But at the end of the day, especially for people that haven't really exposed themselves to a lot of the 80s, pretty much, your younger crowd, yeah, the animation does feel very dated. I mean, there's just no other way around it. So much technological advancement has happened in the animation industry over the, I mean, we're talking what, 25, 24 years? Call it 25, because the movie came out in 86, but you know they had to be animating it for a while, so yeah, we'll, call it 25 years of, oh wait, 80, 90, 96 to 06. Oh wait, hold on. I think I just messed up my math. 696, 96 to 06. Excuse me, 34 years. Derp, because it's only slightly younger than me. Yeah. Certainly 35, yeah, again, counting the time when they started animating it, 35 years. Yes, there's been a lot of animation improvements, so, on that technical level, visually, it doesn't hold up the stuff coming out right now. But, these are the things we all have to accept. I've discussed in previous videos that I have watched those early black and white Universal monster movies, and yes, the special effects are incredibly dated. But I went into it knowing that. So if you can do that, if you can accept the visuals and the animation style being what it is, because it is 35 years old, and you can accept it for what it is, great. I'm confident you're going to enjoy the movie. Those people who have only exposed themselves to more recent iterations of Transformers continuity, again, this movie gives you perfect little, can take it in one night, morsel of what that original series was like without you having to marathon a whole bunch of episodes. So, as I said, in the future, are we going to talk more classic Transformers? Yes, we are. Because I not only did watch the cartoon series back in the day, I have watched it in recent years as I own a big box set of the complete series to go along with my copy of the movie. Are we going to talk about Michael Bay's live action franchise? Sure. We've already talked about Beast Wars. Are we going to talk about some of the reboot continuities that started from scratch and did their own thing? Sure. Probably is one big rundown because I haven't watched any of those shows as thoroughly as I have Beast Wars in the original series. Plus, most of them really didn't run as long. As for next week, you know what? Next week I got a little bit of a surprise for you guys. Something I've kind of been sitting on. Wasn't really sure if I wanted to go through with it or not. It's going to be kind of an interesting thing. I think the time is right to unleash it. So you're going to have to come back in 7 and see what that is. But until then, stay safe, be positive. In the words of Optimus Prime, roll out.